You cannot come to New York and not come to Grand Central.
My favorite part of the station, and just kind of walking into the concourse with the light kind of coming in through the windows, it never ceases to take your breath away.
New York City is the heart of America's train system. Nearly 1 million rail commuters add to its population every day. For over a century, this has been made possible thanks to the extensive network of train lines running like arteries in and out of Manhattan. Here, you can find the nation's busiest rail hubs, the temple that is Grand Central Terminal, and the organized chaos that is Pennsylvania Station. Once marked by a majestic, pillared exterior reminiscent of ancient Rome, Penn Station was reduced to a cramped underground maze. But no one could predict how the station's demolition would change how the city saw its historical landmarks, or who would be there to fight for them. Penn Station may be the country's busiest rail hub, but Grand Central is the world's largest. However, the building's reputation is riddled with scandals, from design blunders to demolitions. It's also home to a few oddities, if you know where to look.
The ceiling is one of the largest mistakes in New York City. It's 25,000 square feet, and it's completely backward.
The over 700 trains entering and exiting the terminal every day bring 250,000 people and inevitable challenges with them. Looking to the future, the city might finally be learning from past mistakes. A new station, more than 20 years in the making, buried deep underneath the terminal, is set to connect millions more riders to this already bustling transit hub. Here's how New York City keeps its hundreds of millions of annual rail commuters on track.
Good morning, tickets please. Good morning. How you doing? Thank you so much. Thank you. All right.
It's a daily ritual we are all familiar with. Heads down, coffee in hand, tickets punched. Each morning, conductors collect tickets on a passenger train bound for its final stop at 42nd Street, Grand Central Terminal. When the overground becomes underground, it's not too far to go.
On me, I have my satchel with my C-checks, my radio's here, I have extra masks I keep on me. I have my printer, and I have keys, I call them my magic keys, the door keys. I get to any train with this key.
Around a third of New York City's commuters enter by rail. Located at 42nd Street and Park Avenue in Midtown Manhattan, Grand Central's 48-acre train terminal houses 44 platforms. That's more than any other station in the world. Managing this transit hub takes a team of assistant station masters patrolling the terminal's main concourse.
There's several different duties that we do. We're all over the terminal. We supervise the overall operation of the terminal, specifically the ushers that stand by the gates and direct passengers to the correct trains, the information booth, and the station master's office. And we also check the departure of trains, checking to make sure that the boards have the correct tracks and that the trains are loading and leaving on time. We're the front lines, making sure that everything is operating smoothly.
Side note, it's New York's worst-kept secret, but all trains departing Grand Central actually leave a minute later than what's on the board. But that doesn't mean people won't sprint for the train. Each morning, you can expect to see a train arrive every 58 seconds. There are 4 major rail systems traveling in and out of New York City. Down by Penn Station, you have New Jersey Transit, Amtrak, and the Long Island Railroad. This all on just 21 tracks with more than 600,000 passengers passing through each day. As for Grand Central, it's run by the Metro North Railroad, a commuter rail service under the Metropolitan Transportation Authority. 5 lines run 787 miles of track across New York, New Jersey, and Connecticut, with 3 of the 5 lines leading to Grand Central.
You know, we've got 3 distinct lines. You know, we travel on the New Haven line all the way out to Connecticut, out to New Haven. It's probably the most crowded line it is by far the most crowded line that we have. Then we have service on the Hudson line and the Harlem line. They're very distinct types of service, serving a broad range of customers around the region. It's a very big operating region. We go all the way up to Poughkeepsie and then all the way out to New Haven and Connecticut. So we have a huge operating territory. We serve all kinds of people doing all kinds of things.
And this system operates like clockwork. Metro North's on-time arrival track record is a whopping 98% system-wide. Without rail travel, the city's economy would grind to a halt. Throughout the 19th century, the waterways of the Canal Age gave way to the Railway Age, quickly urbanizing the areas and bringing the population to 3.4 million by the end of the century. Luckily, when Grand Central's architects designed the station, they did so with the future in mind, creating a building that could withstand a lot more traffic than it needed to at the time. They learned this lesson from its predecessor. Grand Central Depot was built in 1871, when commuter traffic was growing exponentially. New platforms were built faster than you can say, "All aboard!" But it couldn't keep up. The depot was demolished in 1899. Over the next 14 years, the space was transformed into the terminal we know today.
Cornelius Vanderbilt built the first Grand Central Depot, and then his sons went on to build this building that we're standing in, Grand Central Terminal. And that was supposed to give them importance as this new rich family in the Gilded Age of New York.
The new and improved Grand Central embraced modernity. After smoke from a steam train in a Park Avenue tunnel obstructed the driver's vision and caused a fatal crash, the city decided to ban steam trains in Manhattan altogether. Engineer William Wilkes designed the new terminal to be the first large-scale railroad project to switch from steam power to electricity, electrifying miles of track across New York to prepare for the terminal's opening. It was intended to compete with Penn Station, which at the time was considered an architectural triumph. 16 hours after opening Grand Central, 150,000 visitors had passed through its doors. This new economic beacon, along with the expansion of electrified rail lines, brought with it exponential growth in the city's suburbs in the north, handling 22 million passengers in its first year. Over the next 40 years, Grand Central enjoyed a heyday. Commercial development of the nearby zone Terminal City expanded as passenger traffic on the commuter line grew. The skyline formed around the terminal, introducing the Gray Bar Building, the Chrysler Building, and the luxury Waldorf Astoria Hotel. By 1947, the visitor count was at an all-time high.
This is a wonderland, a veritable city beneath a city. Honeycombed with passages to subways, hotels, and office buildings, and complete with stores for every need, Grand Central Terminal plays host to more than 500,000 people in a single day.
Then came a steep drop in popularity with the birth of the jet age and the construction of the interstate highway system. Starting in the 50s, the terminal faced proposals for modification and even demolition. One proposal in 1960 suggested converting the main concourse into a 3-story bowling alley. Grand Central's neighbor, Penn Station, faced the same threats and was eventually demolished in 1963. By that time, the once glorious landmark was past its prime, and the air rights above were far more valuable than any of its insides. Luckily, the newly founded Landmarks Preservation Commission awarded Grand Central landmark status. But the fight to preserve this historic building didn't stop there. In 1975, talk of voiding its landmark status to make way for commercial development alarmed a lot of New Yorkers who were still recovering from Penn Station's similar fate. At a press conference in the terminal's Oyster Bar, Jackie Kennedy said, "If we don't care about our past, we can't have very much hope for our future." Protecting Grand Central proved to be a wise decision. Today, 250,000 commuters pass through these halls on their way to work. But that's only a fraction of the 750,000 people that visit the station each day. Much to some commuters' dismay, this landmark is an icon. Often a popular movie location and a stop on everyone's must-see list, like the famous ceiling. Backward though it may be, it still draws a crowd.
So the ceiling is one of the largest mistakes in New York City. It's 25,000 square feet, and it's completely backward. The mural is actually supposed to depict the night sky from the Mediterranean aspect in October.
Justin Rivers is Chief Experience Officer of Untapped New York and knows all there is to know about the city's transportation system, with a special interest in this building.
The story behind it goes in 1912, as they were building the terminal, originally they wanted to put in a skylight in the ceiling, but they decided skylight's going to be too expensive, bad to maintain, rain, snow, leakage. So the architects decided, let's put a beautiful mural of the night sky. So they brought in a French artist to depict the night sky. He chose a very famous 1603 sketching of the night sky from called Uranometria, which depicts the Mediterranean sky in October. So he sets up his scaffolding, he goes up there to paint it, his team of painters go up, and the problem is he holds the image on the floor. He puts it on the floor, and he's transposing up, which flips it totally around. So that's completely backward. There's one constellation that's correct. It's Orion, because he was actually turned to face the bull in a fight by the original artist. So he's not backward, everything else is backward. Right over there, there is a dark black rectangle. And that dark black rectangle is what the whole ceiling used to look like pre-1994, 95. It was thick with soot and cigarette smoke and car emissions coming in through the windows, and it was dark and black and sooty. So when they cleaned it during the restoration process, they left that one little patch as a reminder of what the whole room looked like. So a bit of non-sexy information about Grand Central Terminal, but something that fascinates me. We're standing on these ramps. And people don't realize this. These were not put in the 90s for ADA accessibility. These were from 1913, from when the terminal opened. That's because the engineer for the New York Central, William Wilgus, wanted people to be able to get off the trains downstairs and go all the way up to street level without ever having to get on a set of stairs. So it was a totally revolutionary design for the day, and no other train station or terminal in America had it. So this is probably one of the hottest spots in Grand Central Terminal for somebody coming here for the first time, trying to find the legendary Whisper Gallery. So that's what's behind me. Whisper Gallery, not intentionally made for the purpose of standing in opposite corners and speaking quietly to one another. It was just a byproduct of the design done by Catalan architect Rafael Guastavino. He did these beautiful vaulted arches. And because of the distance from the floor to the ceiling and the corners, you can have a full-blown conversation facing a wall directly across from somebody else.
And if you go into one corner, you can talk, and the person in another corner can hear you. That's like so amazing. And no matter how many times I do it, I'm always fascinated by it.
It's becoming clearer and clearer, and I can hear even just the... I thought I could just hear the bass underneath. I can pretty much hear you in clarity.
So inside the guide booth, very few people know this, that there's actually a secret staircase that runs from the basement up to this floor that are used by MTA employees during the day to access their posts here in the guide booth. And in between this floor that we're standing on and the bottom level, there's actually a sub-level that they only have access for that has lockers in it. And I've been told, although I've never seen it, I've been told it's not that great by the MTA employees.
But how does a terminal this large successfully handle the massive traffic coming and going 21 hours a day? Well, there's more to see. It lies behind closed doors, keeping the vast system running like clockwork. Hidden on the upper floors, away from the constant hum of commuters and tourists, is Metro North's Operations Control Center, essentially the whole system's brain. From here, rail traffic controllers monitor the comings and goings of all the trains that make up Metro North's system. When something does happen, whether it's a delay or a mechanical problem, the OCC hears it from train engineers, conductors, or police. Even passengers themselves can call or send them a tweet. And they do. A lot. From a sample of 80 events recorded in the rail traffic controller's log that led to 1,944 delays, the most common cause was weather. Delays can also happen if a fire breaks out on the platform or a medical emergency blocks the stream of commuters. Luckily, you need only wait 2 New York minutes for Grand Central's very own fire brigade to arrive at the scene.
Our primary role is prevention because we're here 24/7, but in a situation like this, there's just some things that you can't control. So when those things happen, for example, a medical call, sick passenger, injured passenger, something like that, our team responds to that as well and provides emergency medical care and gets to the patient. Our response time is much shorter than waiting for a 911 call and an ambulance to respond through Midtown traffic. We could tend to them. We could also remove them from the stream of being on a train that's delaying 1,000 or 1,500 other people.
The department has been in operation since 1983, responding to an average of 1,700 calls each year. That's 4 to 5 calls a day, with the majority of them being medical related.
And we see a lot of trip and fall injuries, and not drawing any scientific conclusions, but, people are distracted, phones and not necessarily being present. We have the platform edge. We always say, stay back, stay off the yellow warning lines, pay attention, don't run.
They're decked out with specialized equipment for the terminal, from slimmed-down electric fire trucks to cordless fans.
We have our own internal fire pumps that are built into the building. And that's not a unique feature, but the size of our system. Most buildings have an internal standpipe system, but it's more important here because of the distance from the street. We're 2 blocks wide by 4 or 5 blocks long, and that would end up being hundreds of feet of hose from the street to stretch in, whereas here, every couple hundred of feet, there's a place for a hose connection.
One preventative safety measure taken in 1986 was removing public storage lockers from the concourse. So if you happen to lose something, not just in the terminal, but on any of the trains, you're likely to find it back at Grand Central's Lost and Found facility. In an average year, upwards of 30,000 pieces of property are recovered, with a return rate of over 55%.
There's a lot of customers that would think that, I lost my iPhone today. How many iPhones could you possibly have recovered? They think that their iPhone is, is unique. And unfortunately, we could have received 20 or 25 iPhones in just that day.
A Paralympian recovered his lost prosthetic leg worth several $1,000s at this Lost and Found.
They weren't just the regular prosthetics. These were the, carbon fiber, like the Blade Runner kind of things that were, several $1,000s and fitted, custom fitted just for him. So, it's amazing.
Unique finds among their massive collection have included a diamond engagement ring, an urn filled with ashes, and even a pet rabbit.
Property that isn't returned to customers is disposed of per state property law. There's a vendor that purchases property from us, Long Island Railroad, Greyhound Bus, a number of venues. Their business is to purchase unclaimed property and resell it.
Metro-North Railroad, you're big, you're busy. But with a record 91 million annual riders in 2019, first prize for the country's largest commuter rail goes to the Long Island Railroad. But this line is notoriously crowded and has what seems to some commuters like near-endless delays. To relieve these concerns, something is happening 150 feet deep in the terminal caverns. A new line is being drawn onto the map.
Several stories below where we are now, we're putting the finishing touches on the East Side Access Concourse. So this is going to be a brand new service, unprecedented service for the Long Island Railroad that's going to bring Long Island Railroad service not only into Penn Station, but here into Grand Central. So it opens up East Midtown to the Long Island Railroad commuters. It's going to be much, much easier for them to make these connections.
Costing a whopping $11 billion, more than 2.5 times its original budget. The East Side Access is the Long Island Railroad's first expansion in more than a century. It's expected to relieve an overcrowded Penn Station of more than half of its peak congestion, about 162,000 riders, by rerouting Long Island commuters straight to East Midtown instead, and cutting 40 minutes of commute time in the process.
People have been talking about East Side Access for generations. Now it is close to becoming a reality.
For years, right beneath one of the busiest areas of the city, workers have been blasting and carving the new terminal out of bedrock 14 stories below ground. The idea is nothing new. It's been in the works for almost a half a century. The plans originated in the late 1960s as part of a proposal for the new 3rd Avenue Long Island Railroad terminal called the Metropolitan Transportation Center, with a 2-level tunnel lining 63rd Street under the East River. By 1980, after local pushback and financial troubles, the project was abandoned, with the upper tracks eventually joining the F-train service in 1989. As for the lower-level tracks, they were left to gather dust, and the New York Times called them a dead end to nowhere. That was until 1998, when it was decided that East Side access could be the solution to all of Penn Station's congestion. Finally, plans were underway for a terminal under Grand Central, with construction beginning in 2001. The new terminal's concourse reflects Grand Central's Beaux-Arts style, even using the same marble from quarries in Italy and Turkey that make up the main concourse. It's scheduled to open to the public in December 2022, giving LIRR passengers a much-needed change of service and a change of scenery to boot.
People from Metro North Territory can go down a couple stories, hop on a Long Island Railroad train to all the great destinations on Long Island and vice versa. So you're going to have regional connectivity, that really doesn't exist in that same way now.
When Long Island's commuters finally get that long-awaited East Side access, Grand Central's hustle and bustle is bound to break records. In fact, East Side access is just the beginning of a citywide transit expansion. Amtrak's Gateway program is in the planning stages of creating 4 mainline tracks between Penn Station and Newark. It'll add a 2-track Hudson River tunnel and strengthen infrastructure in the Northeast Corridor, the busiest passenger rail line in the country. As for the future of Penn Station, the newly completed Moynihan Train Hall upstairs has revived the element of grandeur, not to mention personal space not felt in the station since Madison Square Garden took over the street level.
The hustle and bustle is nothing like the feeling out here at about 5:30 on a weekday in the afternoon. A very different feeling from the morning rush hour. There's a certain vibe to it that you don't get before or after. It's only in that small window of time. And I would say that's one of my favorite things, the hustle and bustle of it.
This is the greatest region on the earth, and it deserves to have the best transportation networks as well.
There isn't a railway network anywhere in the country more extensive and lively as the one surrounding New York City. Centuries of economic and cultural growth have woven a web of stone and steel, with Grand Central Terminal, the crown jewel of rail travel, standing proudly at the center.